What if I told you Theo Huxtable didn't die by accident? What if I told you the man we all grew up watching on The Cosby Show left behind a video? No, a confession, and that video was never meant to see the light of day. Well, buckle up, because today, it leaked. And now, Hollywood is shaking, PR teams are scrambling, and the internet, oh, the internet is on fire. Malcolm, Jamal Warner's widow, just did the unthinkable. After years of silence, she stepped forward with a USB drive that might as well be a nuclear bomb. She played a clip. And what came next? It wasn't just heartbreaking, it was damning. He didn't just leave a message, he named names, he warned us, and then he vanished. Drowned, really? That's what they want us to believe. This ain't an episode of CSI, Hollywood. This is real life. And the question we're all asking now is, who wanted him gone, and why? They thought they could erase him. They thought they could bury the truth, but they forgot one thing. The internet never forgets. And we're just getting started. So let's rewind for just a second. Before the hashtags, before the leaked footage, before Twitter turned into a digital crime scene, there was just silence. Deafening, suffocating silence. Malcolm Jamal Warner, the once golden boy of America's favorite family sitcom, was dead. Drowned. In Costa Rica. On vacation. A tragic accident, they said. Cue the fake tears, hollow tributes, and carefully edited flashbacks of Theo smiling like life hadn't crushed him from the inside out. But something never sat right. Not with his fans. Not with his friends. And definitely not with his wife. And now we know why. Because that silence, it was never peace, it was pressure. Malcolm didn't drown. Malcolm was drowned, not in water, but in secrets. And the only reason the truth is finally bubbling up to the surface. One trembling widow. One USB. And one video Malcolm recorded, just days before he was found floating face down in the most suspiciously scenic death Hollywood's ever tried to sweep under a palm tree. Let's talk about the players. Because oh honey, this isn't just about one man and a freak accident. This is about a network of silence. This is about people in power, protected by NDAs, hush money, and a PR machine built like the Pentagon. And at the center of it all, Malcolm. But not the Malcolm we saw on TV. Not smiling Theo. Not the cute, clumsy, moral-lovey episode boy next door. No, we're talking about the Malcolm no one wanted us to see, the one with haunted eyes, paranoia, and stories locked behind studio walls and non-disclosure clauses with more red tape than a government scandal. His wife says he was acting different the last year of his life. He started pacing, stopped sleeping, bought security cameras, changed his phone every month like clockwork. The same man who used to laugh off conspiracy theories was suddenly whispering into burner phones and telling his daughter not to talk to strangers in suits. And when she asked him what was going on, he said, and I quote, "I made peace with the past, but the past didn't make peace with me." Chills, literal chills. Then came the day he gave her that USB, 3 days before the so-called accident, wrapped in a Ziploc bag, sealed with electrical tape. The man was planning for war, and when she asked what it was, he said, "If I don't come back, this is everything." Now, let's talk about that clip. Because this wasn't some cute home video. This was a digital suicide note, wrapped in a conspiracy confession, dipped in a warning. The lighting, dim, his voice, shaky, his eyes, shattered. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. You could practically see the fear sitting on his chest. "If you're watching this," he said, "it means they got to me." Pause, deep breath. This wasn't an accident, it was a message. And if they tell you I drowned, don't believe it. I've been swimming since I was 5. Then he leaned in, closer to the lens, like he needed you to feel it. They don't want this story told, but I can't die with it inside me. And just like that, the mask shattered. Theo was gone, and what we were left with was a man on the edge, whispering truth into a lens like it might be the last witness to his life. But wait, it gets darker. Because Malcolm didn't stop there. According to his wife, the full video is over 23 minutes long. But she didn't release it all. Not yet. She said what the world saw. That was just the first 4 minutes. Just the part where he says he's scared. Where he says he's being watched. Where he says this goes all the way to the top. And just like that, the floodgates opened. Suddenly, old clips of Malcolm started resurfacing. Talk shows, podcast appearances, awkward interviews where he dodged questions like a man with something to lose. One podcast, filmed just 6 weeks before his death, has now been viewed over 19 million times. In it, the host casually asks, "You ever regret anything about your time on The Cosby Show?" And Malcolm, he freezes, laughs awkwardly, then goes completely silent. "Some things you can't forget," he finally says. "You can forgive, maybe, but not forget. Some things stick with you forever." He didn't blink when he said it. He didn't smile. He looked past the camera like he was watching something we couldn't see, maybe something he hoped we never would. But now we have seen it, and the internet isn't letting go. Because that wasn't just a slip. That was a confession hiding in plain sight. And this is where the dominoes started falling. TikTok went feral, Reddit turned into a digital crime lab. Lip readers analyzed every frame of the video. Facial expression experts broke down every pause, every blink, every breath. And just like that, Theo Huxtable wasn't just a beloved TV character anymore, he was the center of a cover-up. Because now people were asking, what was he trying to expose? Who was he warning us about? And who had the motive to shut him up, for good? And the most terrifying question of all, what's on the rest of that USB? Because that's where it really starts. Because what Malcolm hinted at in those 4 minutes was just smoke. What he didn't show, that's the fire. And baby, it's still burning. The rest of that USB, according to his wife, it was so volatile, she couldn't even upload it to the cloud. It glitched her laptop twice. Froze her phone. Then when she finally got a clean transfer, she cried. For hours, because suddenly, this wasn't just about a man afraid for his life. This was about decades of silence, covered in fame, protected by networks, and buried under sitcom reruns. Malcolm named names. Directors, executives, publicists, even fellow cast members. And what they did, well, that's where the smile disappears in the unreleased portion of the video. The part the public hasn't seen. Malcolm describes a ritual that allegedly took place during his early teen years on set. A club that younger actors were allegedly invited into. Not with words, with threats. Not with gifts, but with debt. They told him he was lucky. That most young black boys never made it this far. That silence was the price of access. He says the first time it happened, he was 15, just got nominated for an Emmy. They told him they were celebrating. They told him it was tradition. He said he walked into a private dressing room, thinking he was meeting producers. What he walked into was a trap. What followed was a blur of champagne, locked doors, and hands that shouldn't have been there. He never told anyone, not for decades, because the moment he tried, contracts were restructured. Royalties disappeared. Paparazzi coincidentally caught him in clubs he'd never been to. Tabloids planted erratic stories. One headline read, "Child star turned troubled adult, Malcolm's downward spiral." Spiral? Nah, he wasn't spiraling. He was being strangled by the system. And every time he got too loud, another coincidence. A failed audition. A frozen bank account. A mysterious leak about his personal life. Every time he tried to distance himself from the legacy of The Cosby Show, some invisible hand dragged him back into it. Every attempt to expose the truth got buried under PR spin and nostalgic reruns. He tried to fight it, quietly, at first, therapy, advocacy, starting his own projects. But they made sure nothing ever got greenlit. Doors kept closing. Agents stopped answering. He wasn't blacklisted, he was too famous to disappear, too dangerous to let speak. And then came the Bill Cosby trials. The moment it all cracked open, because suddenly, Malcolm wasn't just paranoid, he was vindicated. And the people who used to dismiss him as angry, started whispering, wait, what did he know? And that's when things turned deadly. In the USB, Malcolm details how his phone was cloned. How he'd come home to find lights left on, doors unlocked, how his mail was opened. How a drone followed him to his daughter's school, and one night, he found a note on his car windshield. No envelope, no signature, just 5 words. Next time it's the girl. That's when he booked the trip to Costa Rica. He told his wife it was a getaway. But privately, he called it an escape plan, and that beach house he rented. Turns out it was owned by a shell company, traced back to a media conglomerate that owned, wait for it, the syndication rights to The Cosby Show. You think that's a coincidence? Please. Even the paramedics who found his body said the scene felt staged. His lungs had water, but his airways didn't. The towel near the pool was dry, and there were no signs of a fall. The autopsy, rushed. The toxicology report, incomplete. His body was cremated less than 36 hours later. Who signed the paperwork? Not his wife. To this day, she doesn't know who authorized it, and yet, the studio released a tribute reel before Sue was even informed of his death. Let that sink in. But here's the twist no one saw coming. The real reason the widow came forward now. Because someone broke into her storage unit last month. The one where she kept Malcolm's hard drives, journals, and yes, the original USB. Nothing else was touched. Not the jewelry. Not the cash box. Just one thing taken, the drive. But what they didn't know was that Malcolm made a second copy, and it wasn't in the house. It was buried, literally, in a garden pot at his daughter's school. Inside a waterproof casing, next to a small plastic soldier figure he said reminded him of Theo. His wife retrieved it after the break-in. And that's the footage we saw, the one that shattered the internet. But remember, that was 4 minutes. There are 19 more. And that final portion, the one she hasn't released. She says she's holding it for the right time. Or maybe the right person. Or maybe the right protection. Because she knows the moment it goes public, someone else is going to die. And in her words, I already buried one man I loved. I'm not doing it again. And that brings us to the question no one wants to answer. What is so dangerous in that footage, that even Malcolm's death wasn't enough to stop it? Because the truth, the real truth, it's not about what happened to Malcolm, it's about what he saw happening to others. And the moment you realize that, everything changes. Because once you realize Malcolm wasn't the only one watching, you start to wonder who else was silenced before they could speak. And now, baby. The survivors are talking. We've all seen the whispers, the cryptic posts, the late-night interviews, the teary-eyed, no comments. But now that Malcolm's wife cracked the first wall, it's like the whole damn industry heard the glass shatter. And they're panicking. One of Malcolm's oldest co-stars, we won't say his name here, reportedly checked himself into a psychiatric hold just 72 hours after the USB clip dropped. What for? Extreme paranoia, according to TMZ. But his family says he hadn't had an episode in over 10 years. And guess what he kept muttering? Over and over. He said they filmed it. He said it was all recorded. Meanwhile, a former child actor, from another classic black sitcom, think 90s Neighborhood, Goofy Best Friend, famous theme song, went live on IG the night after the clip aired. The live only lasted 6 minutes. But baby, it was 6 minutes of pure, unfiltered fear. She didn't name names. She didn't have to. You could see it in her eyes. She said, we tried to warn people back then. We told our parents. We told the producers. But every time we tried to speak, they reminded us. They made us. They owned us. They owned us. She said she remembered seeing Malcolm at a studio party in '94. Alone, quiet. He wasn't laughing like the others. She says he pulled her aside and whispered one thing. Get out while you still have your voice. She was 13, and now, 30 years later, she's realizing just how many voices were never allowed to grow up. Because here's what the industry won't tell you. Some of the most iconic black TV moments of the 90s were funded by predators. Some of your favorite directors, protected abusers, and some of those network presidents. They knew. They always knew. That's why every time someone tried to tell the truth, the narrative flipped. Suddenly they were difficult, unstable, addicted, because nothing discredits a victim faster than a label they didn't choose. And now that the footage exists, the real footage, the uncut truth, the networks are scrambling. You want to know why reruns of The Cosby Show suddenly disappeared from a major streaming platform last week? Not because of old allegations, because of a new lawsuit that just got filed under seal. According to court insiders, the widow's legal team has submitted sealed testimony from 3 different individuals who claim to have witnessed or been part of the same ritual Malcolm described. And one of those names is allegedly still on the board of directors at a current TV network. Let that sink in. These aren't just stories anymore. They're evidence. And here's where it gets even darker. The footage Malcolm buried in that school garden, it wasn't just his confession. According to metadata on the drive, it was recorded 4 years ago. 4 years. Which means, he knew they were going to come for him. He was just waiting for the right time to let the world in. And get this, that same week he recorded the full USB. He filed a quiet motion to remove his name from certain syndication contracts. He didn't want royalties anymore. He didn't want the money. He wanted distance. You don't cut yourself off from lifetime checks unless you're trying to starve the devil. But you know the devil. Don't starve easy. So now the question is, What happens next? Well, the tremors are already here. An anonymous producer reportedly leaked that 5 different black sitcoms from the 90s are now under internal HR investigation. 3 cast members have lawyered up, 2 network execs have gone on vacation, and a certain nostalgic documentary that was supposed to drop next fall postponed indefinitely. Translation: they're in full containment mode, but what they don't realize is that this can't be contained anymore. Because now, the people who were scared are finally protected. Now, the names they once whispered are being subpoenaed, and the boy who once said nothing, well, he's finally being heard, even in death, and just when you thought it couldn't get any wilder. One final twist. Sources close to Malcolm's wife say that the last portion of the USB, the one she's never shown, contains video, proof, surveillance, emails, bank transfers, even a voice recording from a studio meeting where a famous executive allegedly says, "If he opens his mouth, we'll bury him. He's not essential anymore." That file is titled ace_of_spades.mp4, and rumor is, she's ready to play it. She's just waiting for the networks to make one more mistake. Just one more denial. One more lie, and then she's going to drop the whole deck. So if you're watching this and thinking, this is too much, there's no way all of this is real. Just remember, they said the same thing about Cosby. They said the same thing about Epstein. They said the same thing about Hollywood. Again and again and again. Until the victims forced the world to listen. And now the survivors are speaking louder than ever. And this time, because if Malcolm's story cracked the foundation, then baby, the whole house of lies is about to collapse. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, because the footage ain't done leaking, and the silence ain't saving them anymore. Stay tuned, stay masked, and remember, the moment they deny it is the moment we double-click the receipts, because in this game, nobody's untouchable. Not even your childhood heroes. We're just getting started. See you in the next Expose.